In the United States, sheriffs are not appointed officials, but elected positions. Unlike many countries where police chiefs are appointed by the state, in America, residents of the county elect their sheriff. The term can range from 2 to 6 years, and it is the people who decide whom to trust with maintaining order. The sheriff leads their department, hires deputies, and operates independently from the FBI or police. Today, there are about 3,500 sheriff's offices in the US, ranging from small ones with 2 people to large ones with thousands of employees. Thus, a sheriff is both a law enforcement officer and a politician who must earn the trust of their community. Beneath the massive feet of elephants lies an intriguing secret. They have unique toes. These special bony structures help distribute their weight and allow the animals to move almost silently. Thanks to them, an elephant walks softly despite its tons of mass. They sense the ground like a cat's pads and provide stability even on unstable surfaces. This is why these giants can calmly tread on sand, clay, or even marshy land. Their gait is remarkably light, and if you close your eyes, you might not even notice a whole elephant sneaking up on you. Nature has once again demonstrated its engineering genius. The word laser seems familiar and simple, but in reality, it's an acronym. It stands for Light Amplification by Stimulated Emission of Radiation. It sounds complicated, but the essence is straightforward. The technology allows energy to be directed into a powerful beam. Lasers are now used in medicine, science, industry, and even in the entertainment industry. It's amusing that a word we say every day hides a whole technical definition within it. It's as if a long name is concealed behind a short sign, and the term itself has become a symbol of progress, turning into part of everyday speech. In Norway, they came up with a strange yet fun competition, the Championship for Throwing Frozen Salmon. Imagine people gathering in a square, taking a huge fish and throwing it as far as they can. It started as a joke among fishermen, but has since become a tradition that attracts tourists from all over the world. The atmosphere is more like a celebration: music, food, fun, and fish flying through the air. It may seem crazy, but it's these kinds of things that make a culture unique. Every country has its own quirky pastimes. Some have bulls, some have pancakes, and in Norway there's flying salmon. Strangely enough, little Albania has turned into a country of bunkers. In the mid-20th century, dictator Enver Hoxha ordered the construction of defensive structures in case of war. The result was around 700,000 concrete bunkers scattered across the country. They were placed on the shores, in the mountains, in backyards, and even near schools. The country resembled a stone anthill. Today, many bunkers are abandoned. Some have been transformed into cafes, museums, and even housing. For tourists, they are a curiosity, while for Albanians they serve as a reminder of a time when the fear of war was literally embedded in the landscape. We often perceive the nose as just an ordinary organ of smell, but in reality, it is incredibly complex. It was once believed that humans could distinguish around 10,000 scents. Today, we know that our nose can detect up to 1 trillion different aromas. It's a whole universe of sensations, from the smell of fresh bread to the subtle notes of smoke or gas that can warn us of danger. Think about it. The nose helps you recall childhood memories through the aroma of grandma's pies, or feel the excitement of spring through the scent of damp earth. We tend to consider sight as the primary sense, but the nose is a true superhero, working quietly and unnoticed, saving us from mistakes every day and filling our lives with memories. The story of Charles Goodyear proves that even the greatest discovery does not guarantee happiness and wealth. Charles Goodyear, the man who discovered the process of vulcanizing rubber, lived a life filled with debt and legal troubles. He accidentally found a way to make rubber durable and resistant to heat and cold. But instead of riches, he faced endless problems. Goodyear died a poor man, never seeing the recognition he deserved. 40 years after his death, the Goodyear Company emerged, simply adopting his name as a mark of respect. Today, millions of cars run on tyres bearing his name, but the inventor received not a penny from it. The story serves as a reminder that talent does not always go hand in hand with luck. A regular apple is made up of 90% water. That's why it's so juicy and refreshing. When you bite into an apple, it's like drinking a mini glass of pure water with vitamins. It's no wonder apples are a popular snack for travel. They're light, nutritious, and quench your thirst. Interestingly, thanks to their high water content, apples can be stored for a long time without losing freshness. They are like a natural bottle of drink, just in the form of a fruit, and perhaps one of the most convenient snacks created by nature. Beneath the ice of Antarctica lie entire mountain ranges comparable to the Alps. The Gumburtsev Mountains represent a true hidden world. Their size rivals that of the Alps, but they remain unseen, covered by a layer of ice more than 3 kilometers thick. These mountains formed around 100 million years ago, yet thanks to their icy armour, they have remained almost in their pristine state. There may be valleys, rivers, and even subglacial lakes, as if frozen in time. Scientists study them only through radar and satellites. Thus, right beneath the feet of the polar explorers lies a vast world about which we know almost nothing. The word robot first appeared in a play by Czech writer Karel Čapek in 1920. In his play R.U.R., robots were artificial workers created for hard labour. Interestingly, the author derived the word from the Czech robota, meaning forced labour. Ironically, 100 years later, this word has become a symbol of future technologies. Today, robots clean homes, assemble cars, and even compose music. It turns out that it all started with the imagination of a writer who coined a word that changed the world. It's hard to believe, but guilt can arise even from happiness. In psychology, this is referred to as survivor's guilt. This state is often experienced by those who have survived a tragedy or by those who are doing well while their loved ones are suffering. Joy can feel like a betrayal. A person may begin to feel internal discomfort because they have what others lack: health, a job, a family. It's paradoxical, as happiness should bring joy, yet sometimes it becomes a burden. This phenomenon reminds us that emotions do not always adhere to logic. In the Middle Ages, there was an unusual unit of volume, the ton. But it wasn't the familiar weight measurement, it referred to the amount of wine that could fit in a huge barrel. Merchants and winemakers used this method of measurement for trade. Imagine at a fair, deals were made not in litres or even barrels, but in whole tons of wine. Today, this word is associated with heaviness and mass, but once it was linked to joy and feasting. This detail of history serves as a reminder that many modern terms originated from very practical needs of the past, when wine was almost a currency. Yes, there are sharks that can walk. These are small epaulette sharks that live on coral reefs. They use their fins like legs, moving them to shuffle along the sea floor. This ability helps them search for food in places where swimming is difficult, like shallow lagoons. It looks unusual, as if a little shark decided to try on a lizard's outfit. Scientists believe this is an example of unique adaptation. Nature has seemingly given this predator new tools for survival. The walking shark is yet another reminder that the ocean holds countless wonders we are not even aware of. In 2001, the residents of the Indian state of Kerala were stunned. Red rain was falling from the sky. The droplets left crimson puddles, as if after a mystical sign. People thought of the apocalypse or the blood of gods. Scientists, however, discovered that particles of sand and spores from microscopic algae had entered the atmosphere, colouring the rain. This phenomenon lasted for several weeks, and each day felt like a scene from a science fiction movie. For the locals, this event remains one of the most mysterious memories, told to children as a miracle that happened in their land. Japan's national anthem is the shortest in the world. In its original form, it consists of just 32 characters and lasts less than a minute. Yet within these concise lines lies a profound meaning, a wish for the country's prosperity and longevity. In contrast to other anthems that feature lengthy tales of heroism and history, Japan's anthem sounds like a poetic whisper. It's akin to a haiku among anthems. Minimal words, maximum emotion. This succinctness is what makes it unique. Sometimes it's truly better to say little, but with impact. You've probably noticed that sometimes chocolate develops a white coating. Many people think it's spoiled, but no, it's just fat bloom. When cocoa butter rises to the surface due to temperature changes, the taste remains almost unchanged, and this chocolate is safe to eat. It's as if the bar has grayed from stress, looking odd on the outside, but still sweet on the inside. Interestingly, manufacturers sometimes explain this on the packaging so that people don't get scared. So if you see that white coating, don't throw it away. Just give it a second chance. The space menu has long resembled a home-cooked one, featuring borscht and cutlets instead of just tubes. Today, meals in orbit are not much different from those on Earth. Astronauts eat borscht, cutlets and porridge, all in special packaging. Soups are heated and consumed through a straw, while solid dishes are eaten with a spoon. The main difference is that food can float away, so everything is secured with Velcro and served carefully. Many are surprised to find that lunch in space is not a futuristic powder, but rather a familiar home menu. This way, an astronaut can feel almost at home during their meal. Chinese woman Shi Kuping became famous for not cutting her hair for over 40 years. She started growing it at the age of 13 and reached a length of 5.62 metres. That's almost 18 feet. Just imagine how much time it takes to care for such a braid. Brushing alone takes a couple of hours, and washing is a whole ritual. Sometimes she braids her hair or wraps it around herself to make it easier to move. Her record is listed in the Guinness Book of Records, and so far no one has broken it. It's reminiscent of the tale of Rapunzel, but in real life, where determination and patience become a true legend. China has built the longest bridge in the world, the Danyang Kunshan Grand Viaduct. It stretches over 160 kilometres. This high-speed railway connects major cities. Imagine riding a train while an endless bridge stretches beneath you, disappearing into the horizon. The construction took just 4 years, with thousands of engineers and workers involved. This bridge stands as a symbol of humanity's ability to conquer even the vastest spaces, turning impossible distances into ordinary roads. Sharks have no bones. Their skeletons are entirely made of cartilage. This makes their bodies light and flexible, like a spring. Sharks can turn sharply and dart towards their prey with lightning speed, like a perfectly oiled machine. This also allows them to grow throughout their lives. Some species can reach lengths of up to 12 metres. Imagine a fish the size of a bus, yet so agile that it can easily manoeuvre around any obstacles. The secret to its success lies in this paradox. No bones means no weight, only speed and freedom of movement. Pigs are much smarter than people tend to think. They can solve simple puzzles, deceive others for treats, and even recognise themselves in mirrors. In experiments, pigs completed tasks faster than dogs, and they easily learn tricks. Imagine a pig that not only knows where the tasty apple is, but also distracts its competitor to reach the food first. Scientists consider them to be among the most intelligent animals on the farm. It turns out that behind the image of a simple country dweller lies a true strategist and psychologist. The The US Supreme Court may seem like a strict and serious place, but few know that there's a basketball court on its roof. It's called the highest court in the land. Employees and even justices play there to relieve stress after sessions. Imagine this. Just moments ago, someone was making a decision that could change the fate of an entire country, and an hour later, they're shooting hoops. This small detail serves as a reminder that even the most influential people are still human, needing rest and joy. The majestic building with its columns conceals an ordinary game above, a symbol that everyone needs a balance between work and life. Interestingly, would you guess that there are people who find pleasure simply in the process? These individuals are called autotelics. They don't need money, praise, or fame to engage in what they love. Their motivation comes from within. They can passionately draw, program, play an instrument, or write books, losing track of time. In psychology, autotelics are considered more resilient to stress and often experience a state of flow, where a person is completely absorbed in a task. For them, the outcome is not as important as the journey itself. It's like finding joy not only in the travel, but also in the very act of moving forward. In Texas, there's a place that tourists call the Doll Graveyard Town. Once a mining settlement, it is now filled with hundreds of old dolls. They stand on fences, sit in houses, and hang from trees, creating an atmosphere straight out of a mystical film. The locals have turned this into a quirky attraction, offering tours and joking that the dolls rule the town. Of course, it's all in good fun, but it truly looks eerie. Strolling through the streets among the doll residents is not for the faint of heart. Sometimes large numbers seem empty and abstract. But here's an interesting example. 1 billion seconds is about 32 years. That's a span of time comparable to a whole human life from birth to maturity. Imagine a baby being born, taking its first steps, going to school, graduating from university. And all of this fits into 1 billion seconds. The word billion sounds like an unimaginably large amount, but in reality, it's just one segment of a human biography. This simple calculation helps us understand how valuable each day is. After all, time doesn't flow in billions, but in small pieces, and it all depends on how we choose to live them. The name John is familiar to everyone, but few consider how ancient it is. Its history spans over 4,000 years. It appears in texts from various cultures and eras, surviving changes in languages, religions, and traditions. Today, it remains one of the most common names in the English-speaking world. One could say that John is a bridge between ancient civilizations and modernity. Imagine millions of people for thousands of years have responded to this simple yet resonant name. It carries the strength of tradition and symbolizes resilience, having endured through the centuries without losing its relevance. A true veteran among humanity's names. Have you ever wondered what dinosaurs actually sounded like? In the famous Jurassic Park, the monsters sound so terrifying that it sends chills down your spine. But the sound designers didn't find recordings of prehistoric reptiles. No one has ever heard them. Instead, they combined the most unexpected sounds, like the moans of mating turtles. These became the foundation for the fearsome roars on screen. It's amusing to imagine viewers holding their breath, believing in the terrifying roar of the T-Rex, while in the studio, sound engineers are stifling laughter, knowing that the king of the lizards sounds suspiciously romantic. Some mushrooms have the amazing ability to glow in the dark. This process is called bioluminescence. At night, they emit a soft green light in the forest, creating a fairy tale atmosphere. Scientists believe this glow attracts insects that spread spores and help the mushrooms propagate. For humans, it appears as true magic. Walking along a path and seeing the ground beneath your feet illuminated by mysterious lights. It's no wonder such mushrooms have inspired legends and tales. It serves as a reminder that even in the most ordinary grove, one can find wonder if they look closely at night. Did you know that the Pentagon cannot account for half of its budget? The US Department of Defense is regularly audited, and each time it turns out that a huge portion of its expenses remains unverified. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. The reasons include the complexity of the system, bureaucracy, and sometimes plain negligence. But for taxpayers, it sounds absurd. The world's largest military spends money, but can't accurately explain where it goes. This fact has become a source of numerous conspiracy theories and distrust in the government. In any case, it's a striking example of how even a massive organisation can get lost in its own accounts. Sharks have a secret that dentists can only dream of. Their teeth are coated with natural fluoride. Imagine a smile that never knows cavities. These predators replace their teeth hundreds of times throughout their lives, and each new one grows in perfectly healthy and strong. Sharks don't use toothbrushes or toothpaste, yet their jaws always look like a Hollywood star on the red carpet. That's why sharks can hunt for decades without worrying about pain or treatment. If humans had the same advantage, dentists could be turned into museums. This is where people worked when teeth still broke. Flamingos can stand on one leg for hours. For us, it's a feat of balance, but for them, it's complete relaxation. Their joints are structured in a way that makes holding the pose easy and almost effortless. Think of it as having a built-in freeze-frame mode. Scientists don't fully understand how this works. It's as if their muscles lock in place, allowing the bird to even fall asleep without losing balance. Imagine a yogi meditating in a complex pose for hours, but without the slightest tension. For flamingos, it's as natural as sitting in a chair is for us. Avocado nearly disappeared from the face of the earth and survived only thanks to humans. Once, giant Pleistocene animals, mammoths, giant sloths, and woolly rhinoceroses ate avocado fruits whole and helped spread the seeds. But these giants went extinct, and the plant could have vanished with them. However, humans stepped in. Our ancestors began cultivating avocados and preserving their culture for thousands of years. Today, we see it as a trendy ingredient for smoothies and toast, but in reality, it serves as a living reminder that many species survived only because humans became their partners. A sunset on Mars is a true wonder. Unlike Earth, where the sky is painted in shades of red and orange, on Mars, the sun sets in a blue glow. This is due to the planet's thin atmosphere, which scatters light differently than ours. As a result, the daytime sky appears pale yellow, and at sunset, the horizon ignites with a stunning blue light. Astronauts who find themselves there will witness a truly alien landscape. Imagine standing on the cold Martian plains, gazing up at a foreign yet mesmerizing sky. It's like a painting by an artist who decided to swap the usual colors. In Antarctica, amidst icy landscapes, there is a place where a stream of crimson water flows from beneath a glacier. It has been dubbed the Blood Falls. In reality, the water is colored due to a high iron content. It oxidizes and gives off that hue. However, it looks truly eerie. The pristine white ice and the red river resemble a scene from a horror movie. Scientists believe that beneath the ice lies an ancient lake with microorganisms that thrive in conditions with almost no oxygen. Thus, the Blood Falls are not only a spectacle, but also a clue about life in extreme conditions. In 2017, Emma Murano from Italy passed away, the last person born in the 19th century. She lived to be 117 years old and witnessed a world changing faster than ever before. Imagine, in her childhood, there were no airplanes or televisions, and by the end of her life, people were using smartphones and the internet. She experienced 2 world wars, dozens of rulers and an entire era. Emma's story serves as a reminder that each person carries a whole library of time within them, and with her passing, the last page of the 19th century was turned. The Nile is the longest river in the world, stretching about 6,650 kilometres. It flows through 11 countries in Africa and serves as a source of life for millions of people. The ancient Egyptians referred to the Nile as a gift from the gods, as the river's floods brought fertile soil and allowed crops to be grown in the desert land. Today, the Nile remains not only an important transportation artery, but also a symbol of history, culture, and the power of nature. It is remarkable that one river can connect so many peoples and eras, becoming a true thread of time that stretches across millennia. In Slovenia, archaeologists discovered a wooden wheel that is about 5,000 years old. It was made from ash and secured with oak wedges. For its time, it was a true engineering marvel, a component that allowed people to transport heavy loads and build new roads. Imagine an ancient craftsman who first thought to turn a log into a circle and fit it onto an axle. From that moment, an entire era began. The wheel became a symbol of progress, and although it looks somewhat crude, it is from such finds that the history of all modern machines and trains began. If you take a close look at Leonardo da Vinci's most famous painting, you'll notice something strange. The Mona Lisa has no eyebrows. Scholars debate whether the artist intended it that way or if the eyebrows have faded over time, but this small detail makes her smile even more enigmatic. We are used to reading emotions through facial expressions, and the absence of familiar features is disorienting. It's like having a conversation with someone, but part of their words suddenly disappears. Each viewer fills in the gaps in their own way. Perhaps that's why the smile of the Gioconda is so captivating. It communicates with us through the silence of missing details. Galapagos marine iguanas can hold their breath for up to an hour. These unusual lizards live on the Galapagos Islands and feed on seaweed. To find food, they dive into the ocean and can stay underwater for up to 60 minutes. Their bodies are adapted so that blood is directed only to vital organs during this time, conserving oxygen. They expel excess salt through special glands in their noses, sneezing out salty droplets. On land, they bask in the sun, while in the sea they become true underwater divers. This is a unique example of reptiles adapting to oceanic life. The cougar is a cat that seems to have checked off almost every location on the map. You can find it in the mountains of Canada, the deserts of Chile, the forests of the United States, and even on the outskirts of cities. It adapts to any conditions, from snow to heat. No wonder it's called the cat with 1,000 addresses. Unlike many large predators, the cougar is not afraid of human proximity and sometimes appears near settlements. Yet it remains elusive and cautious. It's an incredible example of survival. Where tigers and lions are confined to specific territories, the cougar roams freely across an entire continent. In English, a group of ladybugs is called loveliness, which can be translated as grace or charm. This is perhaps one of the most fitting names for these creatures. Imagine a meadow where dozens of bright red bugs are crawling through the grass. The word herd would sound harsh, while loveliness perfectly captures the mood. Language often reflects people's attitudes toward nature, and in this case, it is incredibly warm. It feels as though the ladybugs themselves have earned the title of the cutest beings in the insect world. We tend to think of the world as having three kingdoms: animals, plants, and fungi. Most often, we classify fungi as plants, but the truth is, they are much closer to animals. They share a common ancestor with us that dates back over 1 billion years. Unlike plants, fungi cannot photosynthesize. They obtain nutrients by decomposing organic matter. Essentially, they eat like animals. So, a champignon or a honey mushroom is not just a little plant with a cap. but a distant relative of ours. Fungi are true recyclers of nature. They return nutrients to the soil, give life to new plants, and without them, ecosystems would simply collapse. About 10% of people on the planet are left-handed. The world is primarily designed for right-handed individuals, from scissors and door handles to school desks. However, left-handed people often stand out with a unique style of thinking. There's a theory that their brain hemispheres function differently, which may explain the prevalence of creative and unconventional personalities among them. Imagine living in a world where everything is slightly inconvenient, yet this inconvenience can sometimes spark ingenuity. Left-handed individuals seem to see the world from a different perspective. There is a strange yet very real phobia called margyrophobia, or the fear of cooking. For those who suffer from it, the kitchen becomes a room of horrors. Pots and pans seem dangerous, and the very act of cooking triggers panic. It's not just a reluctance to stand by the stove, it's a deep-seated fear that can literally paralyze a person. Someone may thrive on ready-made meals, but the thought of preparing something themselves brings on anxiety. This phobia is rare, but it vividly illustrates the diversity of fears. Some people are afraid of spiders, others of heights, while some fear an ordinary pot. Ultimately, it serves as a reminder that everyone has their own vulnerabilities. You won't believe it, but Isaac Newton was a secret agent. At the end of the 17th century, he was appointed as the Master of the Royal Mint in England. At that time, the country was suffering from an influx of counterfeiters. Newton didn't limit himself to office work. He disguised himself, visited taverns, gathered evidence, and brought criminals to justice. His efforts led to dozens of arrests. So the author of the Laws of Mechanics was simultaneously waging a real battle against the underground. History remembers him as a great scientist, but few know that part of his life resembled a spy novel. Vladimir Lenin was not only a revolutionary, but also an avid chess player. During his exile in Siberia, he played correspondence games, solved chess problems and studies, and later often used chess metaphors in his writings. For him, chess was not just a game, but a training ground for strategic thinking. Imagine, he could manage several games at once while in exile and simultaneously work on political texts. Chess helped him hone his patience and ability to calculate moves. Thus, the revolutionary known for decisive actions was a cool-headed strategist on the board, capable of waiting for the right moment to make a winning move. Today, we send each other emojis, hearts and pizza in chats, as if they've always existed. But the first emojis appeared in Japan in the late 90s. There were only 176 of them, and they looked very simple. A sun, a phone, a smiling face. Back then, it seemed trivial, but now emojis have turned into a real language understood all over the world. It's amusing that the idea came from a Japanese mobile company. They just wanted to make communication easier for their users. Now the entire world expresses emotions through these tiny images. You could say that without these little symbols, texting would be dull, like tea without sugar. The oldest joke was found on a clay tablet in Mesopotamia and dates back to around 1900 BC. And funny enough, it's a joke about gas. It says, "Never has it happened that a woman did not fart in front of her husband." Humour, it turns out, is timeless. 4,000 years have passed, and the themes haven't changed. It's amusing that scholars, while deciphering the ancient text, discovered not only laws and myths, but also this little everyday joke. It seems people have always enjoyed joking about the simple and relatable. In the ocean, there are real lakes hidden beneath the water's surface. They are called brines or salt pools. The reason is that in certain areas the water is so saturated with salt that it becomes denser than regular seawater. As a result, a boundary forms resembling the surface of a new lake, even though it lies on the ocean floor. These pools look astonishing. Underwater, there is another surface, smooth and shiny. Unique organisms adapted to extreme conditions thrive in them. Scientists study these places as analogues of extraterrestrial worlds. As life, there is vastly different from what we know. It turns out that even on our planet, one can find almost alien landscapes. In English, there is a record-breaking word, set. It has over 400 meanings. It all depends on the context. You can set the table, set the alarm, or set a record. The same short word can represent an action, a state, or an object. Imagine if we had a word that could mean book, to go, and bright. English is incredibly flexible in this regard, and such words make it rich and vibrant. For language learners, set is a real puzzle that requires a dictionary to navigate. It turns out that we perceive smells not only with our noses. Our skin has receptors that respond to aromatic substances. Scientists conducted experiments by applying certain scents to the skin and observed that the cells reacted. Moreover, some aromas accelerated wound healing. It seems that our skin acts like an additional sense organ that quietly works in the background. Imagine if we could smell the aroma of coffee, not just with our noses, but also with our palms. While this sounds fantastic, research shows that the skin does indeed pick up chemical signals. Planes fly faster from west to east thanks to jet streams, powerful air currents at high altitudes. Imagine a giant river of air rushing above the clouds. When a plane enters this current, it's like being picked up by a conveyor belt. As a result, the flight from New York to London is a couple of hours shorter than the return trip. It turns out that there are highways in the sky, and pilots make good use of them. We hardly notice it while sitting in our seats with coffee, but it's this invisible wind that makes our journey quicker. When you look at a chicken, it's hard to believe that you're staring at a distant relative of the fearsome Tyrannosaurus rex. But that's what science claims. Bird DNA shares common traits with ancient predators. Scientists even refer to the chicken as a living reminder of dinosaurs. It turns out that millions of years ago, terrifying giants ruled the planet, and today their descendants run around backyards and lay eggs. It's amusing how nature has changed the role of these creatures, from kings to simple inhabitants of rural homesteads. And now, when you see a chicken, you might think, here it is, a small shadow of the great T-Rex, stepping into modernity. On the southern coast of Iceland, there is a black beach that is never the same. Every year, its contours change. New dunes rise in some areas, while in others, the sand completely disappears. This is all due to winds and powerful underwater currents that move the sand along the shore. Locals and tourists note that today the beach looks one way, but a year later it's different, as if someone has rearranged its parts. It feels like nature itself is painting new scenes right on the shore. This place has become a true mystery for scientists and attracts travellers, as here one can literally witness the changing land and feel the breath of the ocean, capable of reshaping entire landscapes. Ordinary clay unexpectedly gave the world the image of a piggy bank. In fact, the term piggy bank has nothing to do with animals. In Old English, there was a word pig, which referred to red clay. This clay was used to make pots and jars for storing coins. Over time, the banks themselves became associated with this word. However, people later began to interpret pig as pig. Thus, the idea of making banks in the shape of piglets was born. This resulted in a remarkable example of how a linguistic mix-up created an iconic symbol of children's savings. Who would have thought that the hockey mask was invented by a Japanese man? In 1936, goalie Teiji Honma took to the ice in an unusual piece of equipment, a face mask resembling a samurai helmet. At the time, his idea seemed strange, but it later became the foundation for modern protective gear in hockey. Today, it's hard to imagine a goalie without a mask, but it was once considered unnecessary. Honma was a pioneer who blended the traditions of his culture with the sport. Thanks to him, hockey gained an item that has saved the health of thousands of players around the world. In Sweden, donors receive a message on their phone when their blood is used to save someone's life. Imagine, you donate blood, and a couple of days later, you get an SMS saying, "Thank you. Today, your blood helped a patient." It's not only a nice gesture, but also gives a sense that your action truly matters. People start donating blood more often because they see the results right on their phones. This simple step turns an ordinary procedure into a heartwarming story of human solidarity. And perhaps it's the best like in the world. In the mountainous regions of India, people have found a way to collect water directly from the air. They stretch large nets that capture droplets of mist. The moisture drips into reservoirs, providing villagers with a source of water even during dry spells. This simple yet ingenious solution saves thousands of lives. Imagine being able to catch a cloud in a net and turn it into drinking water. For the mountain dwellers, this is not a fantasy, but a reality. This method demonstrates how ingenuity helps people survive in the toughest conditions. Robert Howard, the author of Conan and the Barbarian, was a friend and ally of H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft, the creator of the Cthulhu mythos, was a close friend of Robert Howard, the legendary creator of Conan. They corresponded, discussed their works, and inspired each other. When Howard took his own life at the age of 30, Lovecraft was deeply shaken and soon succumbed to illness and depression. Their friendship became a link between Lovecraft's dark cosmic horror and Howard's heroic fantasy. Thus, two completely different genres, horror and epic adventure, somehow emerged from a single, creative friendship. We tend to think of the skin as just a shell that protects the body, but in reality, it resembles a vast city inhabited by billions of tiny neighbours. Bacteria, fungi, and other microbes. Their numbers exceed those of all the people on Earth. Sounds alarming. Actually, it's a good thing. These invisible residents help keep the skin healthy, fight infections, and maintain balance. You could say that everyone has a personal army of bodyguards that we don't even notice. They live with us constantly, day and night, maintaining order on the skin surface. So the next time you think about cleanliness, remember, your skin is a whole kingdom of invisible allies. Iceland is one of the few places on Earth without mosquitoes. The climate here is such that insects can't complete their life cycle. It's too cold in winter and the temperature changes too rapidly in summer. For tourists, it's a paradise. You can stroll through forests and by lakes without the annoying buzzing. The locals joke that this is one of their country's main advantages. Imagine, summer, a campfire, a tent, and not a single mosquito bite. For us, it sounds like a dream, but for Icelanders, it's just a way of life. If Saturn surprises with diamond rain, then the phenomenon on Neptune is even more impressive. Under pressure and at immense temperatures, methane in the planet's atmosphere turns into diamond crystals that fall like raindrops. Imagine precious stones gathering in the sky instead of clouds. Of course, at depth, they break down into other forms of carbon, but the process itself is astonishing. A world where diamonds rain from the sky seems like a fairy tale, yet it truly exists. However, it's unlikely that humans will ever reach it. Conditions are just too extreme. But the thought of such natural luxury is captivating. Strangely enough, the word robot was not coined by a scientist, but by a writer. Czech playwright Karel Čapek introduced the term in his play R.U.R. Initially, he wanted to call artificial beings laboras, derived from the Latin word for work. But his artist brother suggested the shorter and catchier robot, from the Czech word for work. Thus, literature gifted science a term that has now become part of everyday life. It's amusing that the technology changing the world began with a fantastical play and a chance word choice in a conversation between two brothers. It sounds incredible, but the diamond market is artificially restricted. For decades, De Beers has been buying up diamonds and keeping them in stock to create scarcity. In reality, there are enough of these stones in the world, but due to supply control, they have become a symbol of luxury and a must-have for engagements. The phrase, "diamonds are forever," was also created by advertising. Thus, the value of diamonds is not just about their beauty, but also a carefully constructed illusion. Millions of people believe that diamonds are rare and unique, even though their price is largely the result of clever marketing strategies. The computer keyboard is something we touch every day, but we rarely think about how many germs are on it. Studies show that there are often more bacteria on the keys than on a toilet seat. Crumbs, dust, and grease from our hands create the perfect environment for microbial life. Therefore, regular cleaning is not just a whim, but a matter of health. Sometimes, simply wiping the keyboard with disinfecting wipes or using a special vacuum for electronics is enough. So, as you type a message or play a game, remember, beneath your fingers lies an entire zoo. And perhaps computer hygiene is more important than we tend to think. Today, over 1,300,000,000 people know and use English. It is not only an official language in dozens of countries, but also the language of the internet, science, and business. This means that even if you find yourself in an unfamiliar corner of the world, the chances of being able to communicate in English are still high. It has become something like a universal translator between nations. Of course, every language has its own beauty, but English has become the bridge that connects millions of different cultures. One could say it is a true key to the global world. In the Emirates, skyscrapers are built not only for beauty, but also for practical purposes. In the heat, height helps cool the buildings. At higher levels, the temperature is lower, and the shade from the towers covers parts of the streets. Thus, architecture becomes a way to combat the climate. Imagine a city where towers are not just decorations, but a refuge from the scorching sun. Moreover, tall buildings save land, freeing up space for parks and roads. As a result, modern skyscrapers are not a whim, but a smart solution that transforms the desert into a comfortable and cool metropolis. What a surprise! It turns out that intelligent people are the ones who remember their dreams most often. Researchers have noticed a pattern. Individuals with high intelligence and rich imagination tend to recall their dreams and can recount them in detail. This is linked to brain activity during the rapid eye movement, REM phase of sleep. Of course, this doesn't mean that someone who forgets their dreams is unintelligent, but the connection is intriguing. Perhaps a developed imagination helps retain nighttime images. It seems that dreams serve as a kind of workout for the brain, and those inclined toward creativity receive a bonus in the form of vivid memories. A group of owls is called a parliament. This sounds very symbolic, as the owl has been regarded as a wise bird since ancient times. In Greek mythology, it accompanied the goddess Athena, and in the Middle Ages it became a symbol of knowledge and magic. Perhaps that's why people decided that a gathering of owls resembles a meeting of sages discussing important matters. Imagine a forest at night, dozens of owls perched on branches, conversing as if they were discussing an agenda. Of course, they have no politics, but the term has taken root in the language. This is a wonderful example of how human imagination gives animals vivid and memorable names. Egypt can confidently be called the oldest state in the world. Its history spans over 5,000 years, beginning with the unification of Upper and Lower Kingdoms. The pyramids, temples, and the mysterious Nile are not just beautiful images, but symbols of a civilization that laid the foundation for many cultures. Imagine While Europe was still unaware of writing, the Egyptians were already constructing majestic tombs and writing in hieroglyphs. And even though thousands of years have passed, Egypt still holds secrets that scholars are unravelling, like the pages of the oldest book in the world. For a long time, scientists were unaware that the strange transparent lava was a future eel. They believed for a long time that the Leptocephalus was a separate species of fish. Its transparent, almost glass-like body with a long shape does not resemble any adult ocean dweller. But then it turned out that this is just a stage in the development of the eel. Such an unexpected masquerade of nature. The tiny larva lives its own life and then gradually transforms into the eel we know. Discoveries like this always surprise in science. It turns out that some of the new species are merely disguised teenagers of old acquaintances. In Australia, there is Lake Hillier, which changes colour from soft pink to deep purple. This effect is created by special algae and minerals. Imagine flying in a plane and seeing a bright pink spot among the greenery of the island, as if a giant spilled strawberry yogurt. Scientists are still debating why the shade is so stable, as even in a bottle, the water from the lake retains its colour. For tourists, it is one of the most unusual sights, a natural palette that looks like a scene from a sci-fi movie. Even carousels in different countries spin in different directions. In the UK, carousels traditionally rotate clockwise, while in the US and continental Europe, they turn counterclockwise. This difference stems from the fact that in the past, carousel figures were designed for easier mounting from the left side. The British deemed one direction correct, while those across the ocean chose another. The result is a curious phenomenon. The same amusement moves in opposite directions in different parts of the world. It may seem like a minor detail, but it highlights how culture influences even entertainment. The Leaning Tower of Pisa has been considered leaning for centuries, but thanks to the foundation reinforcement, it still stands today. In the 1990s, engineers carried out complex work. They excavated soil from one side and added supports to prevent the tilt from increasing. As a result, the tower was stabilised and it has even straightened a bit. Imagine, a symbol of Italy could have collapsed, but the efforts of scientists turned it into a stable monument. Tourists still take pictures supporting it with their hands, but now we can be sure it will stand for at least another 200 years. The Incas in South America built suspension bridges made of grass and vines 2,000 years ago. These woven structures connected the banks of mountain rivers and served as real roads between villages. Every year, the residents of nearby villages would reweave the ropes to ensure the bridge remained strong. Imagine, dozens of people gather, weaving ropes from grass and renewing an entire bridge as one big ritual. Despite the simplicity of the materials, these bridges could support not only people, but also caravans with cargo. This is an amazing example of how engineering can emerge directly from nature. Sloths are known for their slow lifestyle. They can hang on a tree for hours, moving at a leisurely pace, but they have an amazing skill. They can hold their breath for up to 40 minutes. In comparison, a human can typically hold their breath for 1 to 2 minutes. This ability helps sloths hide from predators and even swim across rivers while staying underwater. It seems incredible that such a slow creature possesses a superpower that few people know about. Their slowness, combined with respiratory endurance, makes them true survival masters, proving that their outward laziness is merely a facade hiding smart adaptations. A herd of goats is referred to in an unusual way: nannies and billies. The females are called nannies, while the males are billies. This amusing terminology highlights their personalities. The goat always appears caring yet stubborn, while the buck is independent and proud. Imagine a farm where the shepherd calls not just a herd, but a team of nannies and billies. It adds a touch of humour to simple rural life. Such names show that people have always tried to see in animals not just food or assistance, but also their unique characters. Scientists love to say that the water we drink today has existed since the time of the dinosaurs. Water molecules are constantly circulating, evaporating, falling as rain, flowing into rivers and seas. Imagine this. By sipping a glass of water, you might be drinking the very same molecules that quenched the thirst of a triceratops millions of years ago. This cycle makes us part of a vast system where the past and present intertwine in every drop. Even ordinary water turns out to be a connection between us and the prehistoric world. Today, the computer mouse is a familiar accessory, lightweight and made of plastic. However, the first mouse, created in 1964 by engineer Douglas Engelbart, was made of wood. Inside, there were metal wheels that track movement across the table. The device looked strange and bulky, but it marked the beginning of a new era. It's hard to believe that from such a simple wooden box, modern touchpads and wireless gadgets emerged. This story serves as a reminder. Great technologies often arise from very humble beginnings, and sometimes all it takes is one wooden experiment to change the world. It may seem surprising, but trousers, once considered a symbol of savagery, were ridiculed by the ancient Greeks, who mocked the Persians for wearing them, calling them bags. For the Greeks and Romans, the tunic was the attire of a civilized person. Trousers were seen as coarse and barbaric clothing until the Romans, expanding northward, encountered the Celts and adopted this practical wardrobe item. It's amusing to think that today it's hard to imagine our world without trousers, while they were once a sign of barbarism. The history of fashion knows how to take incredible turns. Fish are not as silent as they seem. Many species have their own ways of talking. Some tap their bones, others produce a sound similar to drumming, and some snap their teeth. These sounds help defend territory, attract mates, or simply maintain contact with the school. Underwater, there is a constant chorus, but we don't hear it due to the limitations of human hearing. If humans could perceive all these sounds, swimming underwater would feel like a real concert, with each creature performing its part. The snail may seem slow and harmless, but it has a whole arsenal in its mouth, thousands of tiny teeth located on a special organ called the radula. With this rasp-like ribbon, the snail scrapes its food, leaves, bark, even stones covered in algae. The teeth are so small that they can only be seen under a microscope, but they make the snail a true connoisseur of nature. Imagine having a mini-saw in your mouth that works non-stop. It sounds funny, but this is what helps it survive in various conditions. In the town of Talkeetna, Alaska, they've come up with a tourist attraction. A trained bear delivers the mail. Of course, he doesn't go door to door, but participates in a show, carrying baskets filled with letters inside the post office. Tourists love the idea of sending a postcard with a bear stamp. It's a unique keepsake. The locals have turned this into an attraction, and now the bear postman has become a true symbol of the town. It sounds almost like a fairy tale, but it's actually a real way to attract visitors and make ordinary mail a local landmark. When the Apollo astronauts landed on the moon, they left not only footprints, but also special markings. These were lines and arrows that helped them navigate in the unfamiliar environment. There are no familiar horizons or road signs on the moon, making it easy to get lost. Therefore, scientists devised lunar markings in advance so that the astronauts would know where to go and how to return to the module. These simple lines became an important part of mission safety. It's amusing to think that on the moon, where there are no cars or traffic jams, there is still its own road system. The human tendency to impose order even worked on another celestial body. If you decide to walk the Great Wall of China from start to finish, prepare for a marathon lasting almost a year and a half. The total length of the wall is over 20,000 kilometres. Even if you walk 30 kilometres a day without stopping, it would still take about 18 months. Imagine, every day brings new views, mountains, steppes, villages, all accompanied by ancient stone battlements. It's like walking along the longest historical ribbon, where each tower holds its own story. Few can undertake such a journey, but the thought that it's possible is inspiring. It seems obvious that matches came first and then lighters. But it's the other way around. The first lighter was invented in 1823, while matches appeared 3 years later. It was created by the German chemist Johann Wolfgang Dobereiner and operated on hydrogen. The device looked bulky and dangerous, but the principle was the same: a spark and a flame. So the familiar pocket item once resembled a laboratory instrument. It's ironic that lighters are older than matches, even though matches are now seen as the more ancient way to make fire. High humidity can make heat almost unbearable for a person. When it's hot and humid outside, the body literally loses its ability to cool down. The thing is, sweat stops evaporating from the skin, meaning the body can't shed excess heat. As a result, we feel weakness, fatigue, and even stress. It's like trying to dry laundry on a foggy day. It stays wet no matter how much time passes. That's why high humidity feels more oppressive than dry heat. The body simply can't cope with natural cooling. The largest spider on the planet is the Goliath bird eater. Its leg span can reach 30 centimetres and it weighs over 170 grams. This hairy giant can hunt not only insects, but also small rodents, lizards, and even chicks. When encountered, it can produce a frightening hissing sound by rubbing its legs together. Despite its fearsome appearance, its bite is not deadly to humans. It's similar to a wasp sting. However, the impression of an encounter is strong. It's like a small dog in the world of spiders. Scientists call it the king of spiders, and it's hard to argue with that. It may seem that sports should unite people, but one day a football field became the spark for war. It sounds absurd, but in 1969, football matches were the last straw in the conflict between Honduras and El Salvador. The teams faced off on the field, but underlying their game were much sharper issues: overpopulation, land disputes, and social tension. The matches added fuel to the fire, leading to a war that would later be called the Football War. It lasted only a few days, but claimed thousands of lives. The irony is that a sport meant for unity and joy unexpectedly became the trigger for a real tragedy. Digital clocks are much more accurate than mechanical ones. Electronic devices use the vibrations of a quartz crystal, which functions almost like a perfectly precise metronome. Mechanical clocks, on the other hand, rely on springs and gears, making them more prone to wear and inaccuracies. The difference can be minutes over a month, while digital clocks may only lose a few seconds. Imagine a race. One runner stays perfectly on track, while the other constantly veers off slightly. That's how it is with clocks. Yet the irony is that mechanical watches often become symbols of luxury and style. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. You can sue for hundreds of thousands over coffee. In 1994, American Stella Liebeck burned herself with hot coffee from McDonald's. The drink was so overheated that she suffered serious burns and underwent skin graft surgeries. The court found the chain guilty. It turned out the company knowingly served coffee at a temperature that was hazardous to health. Ultimately, Liebeck was awarded $640,000 in damages. This case became a symbol of American lawsuits, but it actually highlighted how even a familiar cup of coffee can turn into a source of trouble. The Sahara is not just a sea of sand, but also a place where it can sing. Some dunes emit a low hum or even melodic sounds when the sand slips down their slopes. It's like an organ built right into the desert. The reason lies in the unique shape and size of the grain. particles. They rub against each other and create vibrations. Imagine walking on a dune and suddenly the entire mound starts to resonate, as if alive. Travellers describe this sound as enchanting and mystical. It's no wonder that local tribes have legends about spirits singing in the sands. On the island of St. Helena lives a tortoise named Jonathan, who is around 190 years old. He was born in the 19th century and has witnessed changes in eras, wars and technologies. Imagine, when Jonathan was young, there was no electricity in every home, and now people are launching satellites into space. Yet the tortoise continues to peacefully graze on grass and bask in the sun. His life is like a living chronicle of history. People come from all over the world just to catch a glimpse of this time machine with a shell. On Venus, there is an optical phenomenon similar to a rainbow, but it's called a glory. Instead of raindrops, tiny particles of sulfuric acid in the planet's dense atmosphere create it. As a result, bright-coloured circles appear in the sky, resembling a glowing halo. Imagine not the familiar arc above the rain, but a true cosmic aura. This shows that even on other planets, nature puts on its own light and colour shows, albeit with different ingredients. And even though Venus is distant and harsh, it can also be beautiful. You won't believe it, but the sugar industry has been hiding the truth for decades. In the mid-20th century, sugar producers funded research that shifted the blame for heart disease onto fats and cholesterol. Scientists published articles that downplayed the dangers of sugar, redirecting attention to dangerous fats. As a result, entire generations believed that sweets were relatively safe, while the real threat was butter and meat. It was only later revealed that excess sugar is directly linked to obesity and diseases. This is one example of how business can rewrite science for its own benefit. When a group of ferrets gathers, it's called a business. This is quite fitting. They are constantly bustling about, exploring everything around them, stealing shiny objects, and darting around as if discussing important deals. Imagine a small office where the employees wear fluffy tails instead of suits. They jump, play, and look so busy that you can't help but think, yes, they really are hard at work. This amusing name highlights the nature of these animals: active, curious, and a bit chaotic. It's a business you could watch forever. Camels are the champions of the desert. They can drink up to 130 litres of water in just 13 minutes. It's like a person draining an entire bathtub in one go. Their bodies are designed to retain moisture. Their blood and tissues are adapted to withstand dehydration, and they hardly sweat at all. Because of this, camels survive where other animals wouldn't last a day. It's no wonder they are called ships of the desert. They carry loads and people across the scorching sands like enormous living water tanks. Octopuses are remarkable creatures not only for their tentacles and intelligence, but also for how they care for their offspring. The female lays thousands of tiny eggs and then guards them for weeks, refusing to eat. All her energy goes into ensuring the hatchlings emerge safely. When this happens, the mother often dies from exhaustion. Such self-sacrifice is astonishing. She literally gives her life for the future generation. In the animal kingdom, such devotion is rare, so when observing an octopus, it's worth remembering that behind its cold exterior lies one of the most touching displays of maternal instinct. In psychology, there is an intriguing phenomenon known as the wonderful women effect. Research has shown that both men and women tend to attribute more positive qualities to women. The term wonderful women effect emerged in the 1990s when sociologists noticed that women received more flattering ratings in surveys than men. Interestingly, women themselves exhibited even greater bias than men. This doesn't mean that women are always better. Rather, society subconsciously idealizes them. Such an effect can even influence politics, careers or court decisions, as perception often outweighs facts. Leonardo da Vinci observed a mathematical law in the most ordinary trees. In his notes, he remarked that if you sum the thickness of all the branches of a tree at a certain height, it equals the thickness of the trunk. This remarkable observation has been confirmed by modern research. Trees that follow this rule withstand strong winds and storms better. Leonardo made a discovery that ecologists and biologists still use today. It turns out that the artist and inventor recognized patterns in nature that science was only able to prove centuries later. A true example of how a genius was ahead of his time. Who would have thought that an albatross can fly for hours without flapping its wings? These seabirds are true masters of gliding. They skillfully utilize the air currents above the ocean, allowing them to soar for hours with minimal energy expenditure. Some albatrosses spend years at sea, rarely landing on land. They sleep on the water, feed on fish, and feel at home in the ocean. Imagine a whole life in the sky above the sea, where wings become sails. Albatrosses are a symbol of freedom, and their ability to fly almost effortlessly amazes even scientists. Did you know that avocado can be deadly for animals? For humans, this fruit is beneficial. Vitamins, healthy fats, trendy toasts. But for birds and horses, avocado is toxic. A substance called persin in their bodies causes severe poisoning, sometimes with fatal outcomes. So what is a superfood for us is a poison for animals. This serves as a reminder that we can't measure everything by human standards. Even familiar foods can be dangerous if an organism isn't adapted to them. What is beneficial for one form of life can be harmful to another. Today, it's hard to imagine a computer without microchips, but there was a time when memory was made quite differently. In the mid-20th century, data was stored in tiny magnetic rings. Each ring could remember a bit of information, while wires threaded through them managed the writing and reading processes. This was known as ferrite memory. It looked quite simple, like beads strung on a wire. Yet this technology was a breakthrough that allowed the first computers to operate faster and more reliably. Such memory was literally worth its weight in gold, and every cell counted. Today, it's difficult for us to believe that programs ran on rings, but that's how the era of the digital world began. In Japan, there are unusual hotels where guests are greeted not by people, but by robots. Imagine being welcomed by an android at the reception, while a mechanical porter delivers your luggage to your room. Even cleaning and service are partially handled by machines. This network is called Henna Hotel, and it has become a true attraction. For tourists, it's an opportunity to glimpse the future, where technology and service merge into one. Of course, sometimes robots make mistakes and humans have to step in, but the experiences are unforgettable. The Japanese have once again proven that if you're looking for futuristic ideas in everyday life, you should look to them. A hotel with robots is a reality where you can spend the night today. In the tropical forests of the Amazon, there grows a palm that locals call the walking palm. Its roots are structured in such a way that the tree can slowly move several meters in search of light. Old roots die off while new ones grow on the other side, making the palm appear to take a step. Over the years, it can walk several meters, changing its location. Of course, it's not a stroll in the usual sense, but the sight is impressive, a tree that moves to survive. Scientists debate the speed and scale of this process, but the fact itself is astonishing. Nature once again proves that even trees can seek their place in the sun, literally on the move. In India, a farmer spent 19 years trying to prove that he was a living person and not a dead man on paper. Indian farmer Lal Bihari was declared dead in 1975, according to official documents. fraudsters had registered him in the death registry to seize his land. Since then, Lal Bihari fought against bureaucracy for nearly 2 decades to prove he was alive. During this time, he even founded the Association of Dead People to help other victims of similar schemes. It took him 19 years to restore his rights. This story sounds like a dark comedy, but it highlights the absurdity of the bureaucratic system. When you hear the word bison, it sounds like a joke. But no, bison are a real hybrid of cattle and buffalo. These animals combine the strength and endurance of wild bison with the hardiness of domestic cows. They were specifically bred in the US to create a robust and resilient livestock capable of thriving in harsh conditions. As a result, bison have become true stars of agriculture. They adapt well and produce delicious meat. Imagine encountering a creature in the field that looks both familiar and exotic, as if 2 worlds have merged into one body. Nature and humans sometimes create unusual alliances, and bison are a striking example of how an experiment can lead to an extraordinary animal. You won't believe it, but there is a whale known as the loneliest in the world. Scientists discovered a whale nicknamed the 52 Hertz whale. It sings at a frequency different from all other whales, and no one responds to it. Its call goes unheard or misunderstood. This whale seems to sing an eternal song in solitude. Its story has become a metaphor for human isolation and loneliness. Millions of people around the planet empathize with it, seeing their own feelings reflected in its plight. Sometimes even an animal becomes a symbol of what it means to be misunderstood in a vast world. Once, Xerox was not a generic term but a proud brand name. Today, we say make a photocopy even when using a completely different machine. This is an example of so-called brand genericide, when a name becomes so popular that it turns into a generic term. The same has happened with Escalator, Scotch Tape, and even Frisbee. For the company, this is not a cause for celebration, but a serious loss. They lose legal protection, and the brand no longer belongs to its creators. The paradox is that excessive fame can turn into a disaster. You created a legend, and now it roams the world without you. The carnivorous plant Venus flytrap can literally count. When an insect touches its sensitive hairs, the trap doesn't close immediately. The plant waits for a second touch to ensure it's not just a random raindrop or a speck of dust. If the touch is repeated, the lobes snap shut. Scientists have found that the fly trap keeps an internal count, and a specific number of stimuli is also needed for digestion. This means the plant has a primitive memory and a decision-making system. This makes it resemble a creature with a brain, even though it doesn't have one. A story that sounds like fiction. A caterpillar turns into soup. When the time for transformation comes, the caterpillar crawls into a cocoon and literally dissolves its body using enzymes. This creates a viscous mass from which the eyes, wings, antennae, and all other organs are reformed. Essentially, it's a complete reset of the organism. Scientists are still amazed by this process. The insect destroys itself to build a new body from building blocks. The result is a butterfly, light and vibrant, completely different from the former caterpillar. Nature seems to show that sometimes, to change, one must completely break down into parts. It's interesting to consider which invention has become the most widespread in history. It's the transistor. Today, they are produced in the trillions, with hundreds of millions of transistors for every person on Earth, embedded in computers, phones, and household appliances. Electronics wouldn't function without them. Transistors are so small that we often overlook them, yet they are the building blocks of the digital world. If humanity were imagined as a city, transistors would be the bricks that make up every building, unseen, tiny, but utterly indispensable. The paradox is that nuclear energy is considered safer than conventional coal and gas. Many people associate nuclear power with accidents and radiation danger, recalling Chernobyl or Fukushima, and that ends the discussion. However, statistics tell a different story. When comparing the number of victims and illnesses caused by various energy sources, coal and gas prove to be far more dangerous. Hundreds of thousands suffer from lung diseases due to emissions from power plants, while the climate takes a severe hit. In contrast, nuclear plants generate energy with almost no carbon emissions, and accidents are extremely rare. Thus we have a paradox. The frightening word nuclear instills fear, even though in reality it saves lives. Did you know that the Amish fundamentally do not wear moustaches? This religious group is known for its conservative lifestyle. No electricity, no cars, and traditional clothing. Amish men grow beards, but never leave moustaches. The reason is that in the 19th century, moustaches were associated with the military, and the Amish have always been committed pacifists. For them, moustaches symbolise war and violence, which is why they reject them. It turns out that even a small detail of appearance can become a powerful symbol of beliefs and a reflection of one's worldview. Do you remember those annoying pop-up windows on the internet? The ones that took up half the screen and drove you crazy? It turns out their inventor publicly apologised for them later. In the 1990s, programmer Ethan Zuckerman came up with this method to separate ads from main content. At the time, it seemed like a good idea, but soon ads flooded the web, turning surfing into a nightmare. Years later, Zuckerman admitted that his invention caused more harm than good. This is a great example of how even good intentions can lead to unpleasant outcomes. And now, when we close yet another pop-up window, we can remember that its creator regrets it. Did you know that scientists experimented with inverted glasses? In the 1890s, psychologist George Stratton gave volunteers special glasses that turned the image upside down. In the first few days, people stumbled, struggled to eat or write, but gradually the brain adapted. After a week, they were seeing the world correctly again. And when they took off the glasses, everything around them seemed inverted once more. This experiment proved that perception is not fixed. The brain can reshape our view of the world. It turns out we see reality not with our eyes, but with our minds, which learn to interpret it. In the Chinese province of Yunnan, there is a place that resembles a set from a fantasy film more than reality. It is the Stone Forest, massive limestone pillars that are over 270 million years old. Wind and rain have sculpted the stone into whimsical shapes, resembling everything from castle towers to animal figures. Locals believe that spirits of nature inhabit this forest, surrounding it with legends. Tourists who find themselves here feel as if they have entered another world, where trees have been replaced by stone spires reaching into the sky. This place astonishes with its scale and mystery, reminding us that even rocks can be living pages of Earth's history. In ancient Rome, fashion could be both strange and bold. To achieve a rich dark hair colour, noble women used not dye, but leeches. They would take them, place them in a vessel, let them ferment, and then apply the resulting goo to their hair. It sounds horrifying, but at the time, it was considered a true beauty secret. Imagine a modern salon. A client walks in and is offered leeches shampoo. We would run away in horror, but for the Romans, it was a normal grooming ritual. Interestingly, thousands of years later, we are still willing to undergo bizarre procedures for beauty. Only now, they smell a lot better. Today, we pop bubble wrap for fun, or use it to wrap packages. However, it was originally designed as decorative wallpaper. In the 1950s, two engineers set out to create an unusual wall covering, light, soft, and textured. The idea didn't catch on in interiors, but it accidentally became a packaging sensation. Now it's hard to imagine moving or shipping without this wrap. It's amusing that something that failed as home decor turned into an international symbol of protection and stress relief. Sometimes the best inventions emerge from places completely different from where they were intended. The elephant's trunk is a true marvel of nature. Imagine an organ with around 40,000 muscles, more than the entire human body. Because of this, an elephant can tear off heavy branches, gently pick up a small berry, and even embrace its young. They use their trunks to drink water, make sounds, and play, almost like hands. Baby elephants sometimes even suck on their trunks like children do with their thumbs to soothe themselves. It's hard to believe that one tube can perform so many tasks, from brute strength to gentle gestures. That's why the elephant's trunk is one of the most unique and multifunctional tools created by nature. The myxomatosis virus nearly wiped out rabbits in Europe within a few years. French microbiologist Armand Delille tried to control the rabbit population on his estate by infecting them with the myxomatosis virus. However, the disease spiraled out of control. In just a few years, the virus spread across Europe and killed 98% of the rabbits. The culprit was fined, but the damage was done. An entire species was on the brink of extinction. Fortunately, rabbits proved to be resilient and gradually recovered their numbers. This case became one of the most striking examples of how human intervention can lead to ecological disaster. Cows are not only a source of milk and delicious cheese, but they are also very social creatures. Scientists have observed that they have true best friends. They graze, rest, and even communicate with special sounds together. But the most surprising thing is that when these friends are separated, cows begin to experience stress. Their heart rates increase, and they become restless and sad. It turns out that these large, peaceful animals feel separation almost the same way we do when we miss a close friend. So next time you see a cow in a meadow, consider that she might be standing next to a friend she has known for years, and that connection is just as important to her as it is to us. It may seem like ordinary things, but if you take a closer look, they hold the most unexpected stories. If you enjoyed this journey through the world of curiosities, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. There's even more to come that textbooks have kept silent about.